welcome back to the Sisters to Moms podcast. I am one of your hosts, Marissa.
And I'm Anna Higgins.
For today's episode, I figured since we are posting this right now on my personal YouTube channel, that we will take the opportunity to interview Anna, get to know her, her story, her journey to motherhood, and all things in between. So without further ado, grab your coffee or your iced chai, and let's get into it. So for anyone who does not know you, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what you do for work, how old you are. Just tell us a little bit. Tell us your bio.
Very general, but yeah. I'm Anna Higgins. I am 28 years old. We live in the suburbs of Philadelphia. For work, I am a scientist at Merck. I am a mom of two twin girls that are now just about to be 9 months old,
so
a week or so away. I am married to Ryan, who is my high school sweetheart. We're going on 13 years together, which is absurd.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I, like Marissa, am from the same family for Fratellis, so I'm one of 6 kids, kind of the same background as she has in that department. Same high school, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
I don't know what else to say. This is about my life.
You're like, that's about, and then that's me.
Yeah.
Tell us, obviously you and Ryan have been together since high school. Tell us about your relationship, your journey, kind of how you got married. Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so me and Ryan met when I was 16. He was 17. We started dating kind of right away. We were definitely like the typical high school relationship where we were kind of like off and on in the beginning. We weren't sure. But pretty much when we graduated college, we were pretty much steady the whole time. We have been together. We went through the ups and downs of college, graduation. He proposed November of 2019, so a couple months after I graduated college. We were both still living with our parents. We planned the whole wedding process, of course not knowing that 2020 was coming. So we planned all through 2019, beginning of 2020 hit, and the world shut down. So we quickly reevaluated all the things that could happen in a wedding. Vendors, of course, especially here in PA, everything shut down. You couldn't have anyone inside. So we had to kind of replan everything in a matter of like 2-3 months, which was definitely stressful, but honestly, I wouldn't have done it any different now. We got married at a beautiful winery, so it was outside, very outdoorsy, which is very my type of rustic nature. So that was really awesome. We moved into our home together, which is like a single townhome. In 2020 as well. We got married in October and we moved into our home in May. So it was a busy 6 months, and we also added a puppy on top of it.
She was like, what if she did one, she had to do it all.
Yes, once I moved out of my parents' house, I was like, I need something to take care of. So we got a puppy in August. So it was house in May, puppy in August, married in October. It was a busy 6 months. And then we just really enjoyed the newlywed phase for a while, for about like 1.5 years, 2 years. We kind of just settled into being husband and wife, really enjoyed kind of having nothing to do after the chaos of a COVID wedding, really got into just the groove of our work, our careers, got really focused in that. And then we kind of started to get really serious about trying to have a baby. I am very type A personality, so the whole nonchalant thing kind of goes out the window.
The opposite of me. We're like, in that regards, I'm like, whatever's meant to happen is happening. She's like, no, I will make it happen. Like, we're very different.
I said that in the beginning of just like, let's just do whatever it's meant to be. That worked for about 1 month, and then every month I would get my hopes up and then get let down. So I was like, you know what? The science part of me, I was like, I need to track it. Yeah. I need to do all the things to make sure that if it's even possible, all that kind of stuff. So me and Ryan then tried for about 10 months, and I started reading up. Of course, they always say a year if you've been trying for a year, but with our age, we were young at the time. I was 26, Ryan was 27. I was very regular, and we were both healthy, so I had a gut feeling that it just might not happen without some type of intervention. So, and I always say to trust your gut on that. So we reached out to a fertility clinic, and we worked with them. And we did IUI and able to order to get our 2 baby girls. We have our diagnosis in this whole thing was unexplained infertility, which means nothing was wrong on my side, nothing was wrong on his side. It just wasn't working. Which is good in a sense and bad in a sense, because in that moment you just want an answer.
Yeah.
But it was good that there was no rhyme or reason as to why it wasn't working. So we did IUI round number 1. It didn't work. It didn't take. We got pregnant on our second IUI. So that was fantastic. Then we found out twin baby girls.
So obviously, like, circling back to when you felt like you might be struggling with infertility, what was kind of like the signs that you felt like you might be struggling with infertility? What made you kind of have the realization like, oh, I think we need to go get tested?
Yeah, so I think that when this conversation starts coming up, you start with the blame game, right? Everyone goes, especially if you and your spouse are having open and honest conversations, you're like, well, I know I'm regular, or I know I'm okay, so what's not working? And every month I would track, I would use ovulation strips, so I knew I would be testing my pee and making sure my hormone levels were rising and lowering. So I knew that something was happening. I knew that I wasn't not ovulating, and like I said, we were healthy. So I just had a gut feeling, honestly, that something was going to need to help us get there.
Yeah,
whether
definitely.
That's medication, whether that was a procedure. I was open to anything and honestly anything.
What does the testing look like what did you go through in testing wise? What did he go through testing wise to see that it was unexplained infertility versus something else?
At that point, it's honestly just a lot of blood work. I mean, you go in and the whole process is really overwhelming at first, because they're so used to it. The fertility clinic is so used to doing this day in and day out that they don't really explain a lot to you, which of course is great because they're working quickly to get you answers. They're working quickly to
it's not your norm.
Of course, but when you go into a hospital room, and you're like, feel so isolated in and of itself because of everything that's happening, and no one's telling you answers to anything. So I did blood work. My husband did blood work. And then he had to give a sample as well. They also...
I think the cat wants to come into the room. His paws underneath the door.
So yeah, I just gave blood. My husband gave blood and a sample, and then they also do an ultrasound and make sure everything's good. The ultrasound checks for endometriosis. Any type of, make sure that you have enough number of eggs, all that kind of stuff, making sure the eggs are maturing every month. So it's not just a one-time test. That's what a lot of people don't know, is like getting your fertility checked. It's not just like a blood test or like a saliva test. It's a whole month, because the women's bodies are incredible. Every week your body changes. That it's like in your luteal phase, you're in your ovulation stage, then you're dropping your eggs. It's every week is different, so they need to make sure your eggs are maturing and
something that we just
passing.
Don't learn anything about. So until you were going through the process, you really had no idea what
100%.
Any of this even meant.
No, 100%. And it's something that I'm really passionate about now, is making sure that, not that I'm against any type of birth control or anything like that, but it's good to know your body. It's good to know the science behind it. Like I said, I'm a very science savvy person anyway. So, and now, even knowing my body now and not trying for a baby currently, I still now know when I'm ovulating and feel those symptoms and things like that, more than I even probably did. I just thought maybe about a week or so before my period I got cramps for no reason. But it's actually ovulation. So you just don't process it.
It doesn't connect all that, because you don't learn any of that. Like when you're in school, they don't teach you about the various phases of the cycle. You kind of just learn oh, this is your menstruation cycle.
And if they do, you don't really care.
You're not paying attention to it. You're in the 5th grade, and you're like, I don't when's recess. You're not really, you don't care about any of that. Now until you're trying or having struggles with trying and going through infertility, you don't pay attention to any of that.
All you know when you're growing up is that getting pregnant is so easy, which for some people it's very far from the truth. So that's one misconception. It's you also have to sometimes try really hard, and it still doesn't work. So
you get the diagnosis of unexplained infertility. Kind of take us back to what was your emotions going through? What obviously the world's around you at that time. I know you had friends that were getting pregnant and all of that. Can you just take us back and kind of talk through that?
Yeah. It's kind of something, to be very honest, that I kind of black out. So it was a really dark point of our time trying, because I wanted to be so positive, which I generally usually am. A pretty half-glass full type of person.
It's hard to see the optimistic side of things.
Yeah, and once you're the first couple months, you're okay, it's not working. People take a couple months to get pregnant, right? It's not a big deal. And then month 7 happens, and you're okay, it's taking a little longer, but it's probably going to be fine. They say to wait a year. And then when you're rounding out that 10, 11 months, you're okay, maybe we need
maybe
to
there's
talk
something going
to
on.
someone. So it's a lot of emotions, even month. I mean, I still remember breaking down. So every month when I would get my period, and at first you're like, it doesn't matter to me. It's fine. Whatever meant to be, meant to be.
Yeah, like it's always going to be like, whatever's meant to happen, it's going to happen.
Exactly. But then by month 10, 11, especially when you're going through fertility stuff, you're working with these doctors. So the first couple months when it doesn't happen and you're having the assistance of doctors, you're like, it's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's a really dark and emotional time. Like I said, it was nice to have that diagnosis, but also it was really hard because you're like...
There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, you're like, so then what's the issue? And I'm such like a, here's the problem, let's come up with a solution.
Right, like here's how I fix it.
Exactly.
And there's no way to fix this. It could have been, you never could get pregnant and there's no reason behind it. It just never can happen. Like that is possible. And that explains infertility.
Yeah, of course. And like Marissa said, I'm at an age where my friends are slowly starting to get pregnant. And not a ton. We're still on the younger side of things, of course. There's a lot of people in our age group that are still dating and slowly getting married. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But I would see these pregnancy announcements and be like, well, why can they?
Yeah,
why
not
are they
me?
special and not me?
Yeah, why not me?
So it's not like and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but Marissa got pregnant pretty easily the same time that we were really struggling. And it's really like not that you're mad at them, it's more like you're really sad for you.
It's just super bittersweet.
Yeah, exactly.
Super bittersweet. It's something you want so bad.
And I think that's very different, of course, also with like you than compared to someone like on Instagram.
Well,
that I like don't care about.
Absolutely, fair enough. If you are like if my friend, let's say, is struggling, going through infertility, even in this situation with you, it's obviously very different because we're like very honest and all that. But if you have a friend who's going through infertility, how do you feel like someone could have supported you guys? How did people support you guys? Yeah. Because it can kind of be like this very difficult conversation about, do you check in, do you not check in? Do they want to talk about it? Do they not want to talk about it? So how can someone be supportive in this situation to a friend?
Yeah, and like you said, where I was very, very open about it because like you can tell, like we like talk about everything. So I was going to implode if I didn't talk about it. Yeah. So
you needed a support system around you.
And I think it's just people who aren't trying to give solutions, right? I think a lot of the older generations, like our parents' generations and some people in our age group, it's like, okay, well, if you tell them you're struggling, you're telling this, and they're like, well, have you tried relaxing or going on vacation? Or
why don't you just have a drink?
Why don't you guys just get drunk and have fun? And you're like, okay, well, that's not what I need to hear right now.
And that may not be the reason.
No, and 95% of it isn't. If you're struggling with infertility, tell them to shut up. Because it's just ridiculous. Yeah, it's true. The whole relax, it doesn't work. It's not biological like that. Yeah. Go on vacation together. Get away.
You're like, okay, good, I'll try that.
The amount of times I've heard that. Oh, when you're least expecting, it'll happen.
Just pray on it.
Yeah. Oh my god. So I think just like really understanding that sometimes there's not a solution, and just being there and supportive. I don't think you have to. Sometimes one thing that I really learned just like over the years is that just because people are telling you your problems doesn't mean that they always want a solution.
Yeah, sometimes they just want a sounding board.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that a lot of the times you're venting, you're talking about it. You don't constantly need to be like, it's okay. Just validate and be like, I know that this is really hard and I'm sorry that you're going through it.
And like, we're here for you.
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's the hardest part is like, you want to be able to like help them and give a solution, and like, I can't help you get pregnant unless I literally was your surrogate. So there's no way that I can assist you in this situation. So just being like, I'm here, however you want to talk about it. Like, there's nothing I can do to fix the problem. So just being a sounding board. But it can definitely be so difficult to want to so badly help someone, and you obviously can't. And it's like, how can you be supportive still, even though you can't fix what's going on?
Yeah, and like I said, just be there, be supportive, listen. That's all you need to do. Take them out for a lunch. Just let them talk about it for the whole hour if that's what they feel comfortable doing, or taking their mind off it. Yeah. Go out to lunch and talk about everything else under the sun besides that.
So before we kind of move on from infertility and IUI and all that, can you talk like basics in case someone may not be familiar with going through infertility and all of that? What is the difference between IUI, IVF? Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So I didn't know any of this, of course, before I went through it, and same thing with like a lot of my family. A lot of my family got pregnant pretty easily, which thank God. But I was the first person who kind of really had to understand and did a lot of research of the different options that we had to do. So when we first got in there, a lot of the things that they say is you're going to naturally try with help of medication. So maybe you're not ovulating enough, so they give you a boost of medication. So like as an example, the first medication I tried was letrozole, which just boosts your ovulation. Which is great. So they just make sure that you're ovulating and really dropping that egg in order to get it to meeting the sperm. We did that for a month, and I told my doctor pretty straight off the bat. Like, I kind of am too mentally drained to do this. I kind of just want to jump to something that's very much like, you just help us.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to have to go through month in and month out of still heartbreaking.
And you kind of already knew that you were ovulating regularly.
Exactly.
So you weren't concerned about ovulating at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So we then moved to medication and doing the IUI. So an IUI is a step down from IVF. So what it's basically, for a lack of better words, it's just a turkey baster you. So my husband gives a sample. They put it into a long syringe. They do a bunch of tests on it before that, though. They make sure the number of sperm's okay. All the heads of the sperm are normal. They're all moving in the right direction. Things like that. Me and my husband actually were able to look at his sperm under a microscope, and it was pretty cool.
I'm sure, yeah.
The scientists
When's the last time you've ever done it?
Yeah. The scientists in the back were like, do you want to come see? And I was like, and the scientist I was like, yeah. So we went and we saw that. So they make sure that's all good. And then when you go into that room, they do an ultrasound throughout the month as well to make sure that your eggs are maturing. And anyone who knows this, if you're working with a fertility clinic, you're there like 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
It's very exhausting in the moment. And so we would go into the ultrasound room. They would check me, make sure that my eggs are about to drop or have dropped. And then, for lack of better words, they turkey baster you. Yeah. That's kind of what it is.
I mean, yeah, it's like they're like,
they shoot it up in you
and they hope
for the best. They give you medication, and then you come back in about a week to make sure all your levels are good. If you're pregnant, they tell you to wait that 14 days, which no one waits. 14 days to take a pregnancy test. You come back if they're pregnant or not pregnant, and then you go from there.
Yeah.
Every month, like I said, it's a very scientific way of doing it, which for my type A brain was great. I knew day 2 of cycle.
Yeah.
We need to do this. Day 10, day 14. Yeah. It was very,
although it was so specific, it almost was
yeah.
better for you because you knew you were controlling as much as you could control.
Exactly. In a very uncontrollable way that I felt. I knew that we had an appointment at this time to do this. Like, it was very much a regimen.
So IUI versus IVF, what is the difference?
So IVF is much more invasive, where it's a surgery. I don't know too much about it because we didn't go into it, but just from doing my own research, they basically plump you with hormones, kind of get your eggs as much mature as they can get in your body, take them out, inject the sperm, and then you get a little embryo and see how many mature that way, and then insert it back into you if it's mature enough.
Okay.
And then hopefully it sticks, hopefully it starts to develop, and all things good like that. So it's a little bit more invasive, for
the
sure.
Next step up.
Exactly. It's a little bit more of a surgery process.
So obviously you see a lot on social media of when people are struggling with infertility, you see a lot of shots. What would be a situation where someone would need a shot?
Mm-hmm.
I know you did not, but what would a situation be where someone would need injections and shots and all of that? Yeah,
so again, I'm not an expert on this by any means. So I think that what I can imagine it is this shot is helping you ovulate. It's kind of like I said, they plump you with hormones. They make sure the hormones are high enough if you have a low estrogen or a low hormone to make you ovulate. It's pretty much just plumping you up to make sure
your body's running.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that struggle with IVF, they also do tend to gain weight. They tend to do things because they're just pumping you with hormones.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So transitioning out of the infertility topic, okay, now that you're pregnant and we find out that it's twins, take us through your pregnancy, take us through the highs, the lows, just talk about your pregnancy a little bit.
Yeah, so like I said, we were working with a fertility clinic, so we knew pretty much immediately that we were pregnant. You go in also immediately and see the embryo.
Crazy.
Like, the differences between your amount of ultrasounds and mine are crazy.
Yeah, it's like I got like 4.
Yeah, let alone the fact that like I got 4 like every month.
Yeah.
So like it's also just different because it was a high risk twin pregnancy. But yeah, other than that, I mean, we graduated the fertility clinic around 10 weeks, which was a very emotional process. I cried the whole appointment because I knew it was my last time there. It's crazy to think that you get so attached to these doctors and nurses, but they're cheering you on so much.
Yeah, they genuinely changed your life.
Yes, they did. And that's what we worked with a PA. The doctors at the fertility clinic that we worked with. Dr. Allison. The specific doctors work on usually IVF because that's a little bit more invasive. The PA we worked with was incredible. She has a special place in our heart. We sent her a Christmas card. Yeah. She is an incredible woman. So like I said, when we graduated, I broke down in tears for her.
Yeah.
I cried to all the nurses, thinking that it was my last time seeing them. While I was so happy,
of course,
it was such like a chapter ending.
Yeah, it was like such an emotional chapter in your life, and they were there the entire time.
Yes, and supporting you, cheering you on. The fertility clinic that we went to was also super inclusive, with gay couples and things on the wall, and it was just a very much like we are a unit,
and a
together.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was great. So we moved into our OB. Since it was twins, it automatically became a high-risk pregnancy. We knew the whole time that they were die twins, which means that they have their own sacs, own placentas.
Is that more common with IUI than anything? Like,
I don't know if it's more common. Okay. I think it's just the luck of the draw.
Okay.
Which for twins, best case scenario tends to be die because you get the healthiest babies because
they have their own.
They have their own sacs. They are not sharing any nutrients from each other from each placenta. So our girls are pretty chunky.
Sure.
Which is great. So once we transferred into the IU or once we transferred into the OB, it was a pretty easy process. Yeah. I had a really easy pregnancy, all things considered, with twins. So I was just kind of living in the moment that I was pregnant. What we went through, it truly was just like
any tough symptom day still seemed incredible because at least you were pregnant.
1,000%. I was just like happy all the time. My whole pregnancy. I know pregnancy is not for everyone, but I like relished in it. I was like, this is beautiful. This is incredible. So that was the case, and then we just went all the way until 35 weeks, 5 days, which is
so crazy.
Pretty crazy with twins.
Because full term for twins is different than
36.
Full term.
36. So they don't, for twins, they don't let you go any longer than 38 weeks. You would have to get a C-section or get induced because the babies would get too big. There's a lot of harm that can happen on the mom or on the babies because there's just physically not enough room. And so that's its own thing, but we made it to almost 36 weeks, and the doctor was like, you're good anytime now. Like, the babies are good, we're good. And I was just trying to stay calm, stay rested, not move around too much. I was never on any type of, like, bed rest or like, medical rest at all.
You got a little bit more uncomfortable towards the end, but you were still up, moving.
It was also June and July.
Yeah, right.
So it was hot, humid. I spent a lot of time in the pool because it felt great on my back. Luckily, Marissa had just given birth as well. So we were just, like, in it together of, like, she was newly postpartum. I was in a lot of pain. So we kind of spent a lot of time together.
For sure. Which is so different than now.
Exactly. But so, made it to 35 weeks. 5 days, had a C-section.
You had a scheduled C-section, and then her water broke. So talk about that.
My water broke at 3 a.m. on July 4th. So July 4th into July 5th. They were born on July 5th. I woke up thinking that I just had to pee because I had to pee all the time. Got back into bed trying to get comfy. My water gushed.
Yeah, like what you would imagine the movie scene to look like.
Yes, like it was like a gush. So I got up. I instantly started feel cramping. Like it wasn't like I think this might be it. It was like I'm in pain.
Yeah.
Like bending over the kitchen sink, trying to put pants on, like trying to get through it. So I called everyone. I called my mom. I called Marissa. I called my sisters. Called Ryan's sister and let everyone know that I was heading in. Of course, it was 3 a.m., so only a couple people answered.
Including me, because I was up with a baby.
She had like a 4-week-old at that point, so 4 or 5-week-old, so she was right in there with me. So we drove to the hospital. Luckily, they did some monitoring right away on me and the babies. Everything was all good. So it was a C-section, but it was an emergency C-section. They weren't like tossing me in the room and just being like slice me open. So
Thank God for that.
It was felt very controlled process. I felt good through it all. We always knew that the babies were happy and content.
And you had to have a C-section because
my baby A, which baby A always comes first, was breached. So not that it mattered who was breached, but my specific baby A, who's always closest to your cervix, in case of twins, baby A is always closer, was breached, meaning feet first. So
you had no option to deliver vaginally.
Yes, exactly. So we always knew we were going to have a C-section. Basically, after like the 28th week, the doctor said there's just no more room for her to physically flip anymore. So we knew that we were having a C-section. It was in our chart. The second we checked in, they knew we were having a C-section. So we had our C-section. Within 5 minutes, the girls were out. It was crazy.
It's like the craziest experience, like I think to like hear because it's just so different than my experience.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like you kind of like black out in a sense of like there's just so much happening. Doctors are coming in, putting IVs in you, doing things, and then you're instantly getting rolled to the OR. And the OR in of itself is like a overstimulating.
Yeah, it's very, especially when you've never had any major surgery before. Because mine is like wisdom teeth.
Exactly. So we were in there, the bright lights. My husband came in scrubs. I was like, oh my god.
You don't feel, what do you feel? Do you feel any pain? Do you feel them moving around? Like, what do you?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
So when you're standing up and sitting there, number one, it's so common in a C-section to throw up. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I never
because like
it is touching
your organs. Exactly. But you don't really hear about that.
No.
People throwing up during
C-section. People talk about pooping during labor all the time, but not throwing up.
I threw up the whole entire C-section.
Terrible.
And I was like, you're obviously like on your back, so you just have to like turn your head.
Yeah.
It was the worst. And then, so they cut you open, like I said, they're out in 5 minutes. The whole rest of the hour process is them stitching you back up.
Yeah.
So that's the whole process. I could hear them crying over on the side. My one daughter took a little bit longer than the other. She was just
and whether it takes a long time or not, it literally feels like an eternity in that moment. Because like the same thing, like AJ didn't take a long time. It took him like a literal maybe 20 seconds.
I'm sure.
But that was
the man was ready to rock and roll.
Longest 20 seconds of my entire life. Because I'm like, is he okay? Is he okay? Like
my one daughter, I saw them in the corner like banging on her back because she just had mucus.
Yeah.
They knew she was fine. They had her heart rate and everything.
Yeah.
But you just want her to hear that first initial cry.
just need to hear that they're okay.
Of course. So they were over there getting checked out. Our OR in particular had like 30 people because
it was a show.
It was a lot. Also, it was like 3 a.m. so like everyone came to play.
Nothing else going on.
It was July 4th, so they were like, we're here on holiday pay.
Yeah. So, everyone was just hanging.
Yeah. So each baby had their own NICU team. Each baby had their own peds team.
Mm-hmm.
I had my own team. So there was just a lot of people and not handling everything. It was a very overwhelming experience. My husband was near my head the whole time and then would go to see the girls.
Yeah.
The girls had never left his sight. Of course, I was on the table. So, but when they rolled the girls out, he went with them. I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
We instantly knew that they would have had to spend no time in the NICU. They did all the pulse ox texting. They passed all those tests that would have to go in the NICU, which is an incredible feeling. That was what I was most nervous about.
Of course.
Because you always
that's the horror stories you hear about twins. More than anything, it's because they typically come very early.
Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately they do need to spend at least some capacity in the NICU for further development.
Yes. So that's what I was most excited about. Knowing that I didn't have to stay long in the hospital.
Yeah.
Notes to me that it was because of me. But my girls were all good, which was incredible. They were a little jaundiced, but that's worst case scenario. I was lucky for that.
In the moment when they first like kind of pull them out of you, is there like emotions going on in that moment? Like, or like, are you just kind of just so numb to what's going on?
No,
it didn't really
set
in until, okay, I was going to say like,
I was
it's such a different experience than what I experienced. So it isn't like, oh my God, thank God I'm done pushing this human out of me. Such a relief, the best feeling ever. Like, it's such a different experience.
What I was most sad about having a C-section versus vaginal was that moment when they come out and they put them on their chest. I never got that until we were back in triage. Which sucks, but it was for the greater good. They're perfectly healthy babies. They're perfectly attached to me. It didn't do anything to their psyche or anything like that. You hear all these stories about they're never going to get attached.
They're not able to breastfeed, things like that. Yeah.
So they're perfectly fine, but. They instantly came out. Like I said, we heard their cries. It was, I didn't see them right away. I didn't actually see their faces until triage. My husband went over and saw them.
I like literally can't even imagine. That is like so crazy.
I heard them cry and my husband went to go take pictures of them and I saw the pictures on his phone. But that was the extent of it. I didn't see them and get to hold them until probably around an hour and a half after they were born.
Okay. That's so wild to me to think about. But so obviously kind of like hospital stay into kind of early postpartum, like C-section recovery. How was that experience for you? Was it what you were expecting, better than you were expecting?
Much better than I expected. I unfortunately went down a deep dive of TikTok of being
impossible not to
C-section recovery horror stories. And people, I would send them to Marissa and they would be like 6 weeks, 6 months postpartum.
Barely able to move.
Barely able to like walk up the steps.
Hold their baby.
I was so nervous about that. We had our whole house set up as if I wouldn't even be able to get off the couch.
Go upstairs.
Nothing. And I was super proud that I was able to walk to the bathroom by myself night 1.
Yeah.
Of course it hurts. It feels like your organs are going to fall out of your stomach, but you do it. The woman body, like I've said a million times, is absolutely
literally
incredible.
the most incredible thing.
And for sure. So it was much easier than I thought. Ryan helped me shower the first time, or you did.
I did.
Marissa helped me shower the first time. They were the first people besides our parents to come meet the girls. And I showered the night that I gave birth, like that afternoon. But I still just felt like a little gross, but I kept telling Marissa, like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to shower. I was nervous about the stitches.
It's scary, and you had something.
The back.
Yeah, so you still can, because I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't either. I guess it's like a new thing in C-sections. Our doctor was like super excited about it. She put it on, and apparently it's like a wound vac, and so it's like it's like sucking out the air as you're going, so I could feel it kind of like sucking a little bit.
And it's not supposed to get super wet. Yeah, it's not supposed to get super wet, so it's like it's very also like it just kind of felt like you were getting your feeling of your legs back for the first time, and like you're up and were in major surgery earlier that day.
Yeah,
so
and that's
scary.
Even though it happens all the time, a C-section is a major surgery.
Absolutely.
Like I just said, I had one of my good friends who just had a C-section. They accidentally cut her stomach, which like it's crazy how much things can go wrong. So you have to take it slow, but also push yourself at the tiniest bit.
There has to be some willpower for sure, but also like I think like the resilient, like it's sometimes there's something in your control, like you know what I mean, like it is still a major surgery regardless.
Walked around the unit. Got up as much as I could to help with the babies. My husband was a rock star immediately with diaper changes with both of them, so it was double the diapers. But honestly, it gave him
all the good practice. He went from 0 to 100.
He never changed a diaper before that. And he was just like, I've had so much.
Yeah, that's how skinny he was. The first diaper he ever changed was like once AJ was here. It's the craziest thing.
Because like also, why would you change one?
Yeah, for sure.
So, but it was good. It was much better than I thought it was. I was able to go home, felt really normal. I never had to take any type of hard medication, like hard pills. I was just on Tylenol at that point, so I'm super proud of that.
And now how's motherhood of twins been? What has been the most rewarding part and what has been the most challenging part?
Most rewarding is definitely the season of life we're in right now. They're so fun right now. They're at like the 8-9 month stage where they're smiling, giggling, just want to be
little
silly
personalities.
24/7. They're so different than such like potato sacks, especially with our girls. They came early, right? So they really didn't like understand they were in the world until like 3 months in. And my one daughter was super colicky. So that was really hard. I wouldn't say that that's my most challenging time, but definitely top like 2 or 3.
Of course.
I had
crying for absolutely no reason. Nothing could make her feel better.
Yeah, we would just pace with her 24/7. She would scream into her bottles. She would scream all the time because she was just uncomfortable. And it's sad, like, thinking about now, but she's such a happy baby now that it's, like, hard to imagine her.
They say that, though. They say the colicky babies are the ones that, as an infant and as toddlers, will give you no problems.
Yes. So she's definitely...
She's got all her cries out.
For sure. That's what we would say. Like, she ran out of tears. So that was incredible. Right now is awesome. To just like be a mom and be silly and be funny and
really get to experience like being a mom, where before it's just like a survival.
Yeah, it is. Like, you're constantly in the mode of like what can happen next.
Right, and like just like you're figuring everything out for the first time, and not that you're still not, but it just feels like you like okay, although I don't have like the grasp of this because they always throw something new at you. It's like I've got the grasp of it. The next sleep progression, literally.
The most challenging probably was going back to work. I was extremely lucky and extremely grateful that I got 6 months maternity leave with the girls, which you get in Merck and in my company, regardless if you have twins. It just happened that I had twins. So even if you have one, that's incredible. And then, of course, if you have a C-section, it's an additional little bit of time because it's a surgery. So all of that combined with my paid time off, everything that I used, it was 6 months total. So that was incredible. So going back to work with them as such little potato sacks still was really, really hard. I was very particular, and Marissa can attest to this. I'm very much a routine person and very much like we need to do it this type of way. So kind of giving up the power in a sense to my mom and to his mom who helps watch them throughout the day when we work. was very hard. I broke down, and I'm sure any mom watching out there who goes back to work cried majority of the first week. It's an adjustment, right? Because your heart is somewhere else.
Yeah. You're not 100% at work ever because there's so much of you that wants to just be with your baby.
Yeah. So,
and you're missing out on
precious time.
Moments that they're getting to experience things for the first time that you'll never, even though it might be the first time you experience it, you may not see some of their first big moments because you're
crawling, walking, first steps, things like that. So it's really hard to be a full-time working mom. Of course, being a stay-at-home mom is just as admirable and a different type of service.
Absolutely,
service to your family.
Yeah.
But in my role, I wouldn't have been able to step away from work.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the most challenging, I would say. I'm excited for all things to come. And people always stop us on the street and like, wait till they're toddlers, I'm excited. I don't see if we can make it through the first 6 months of them being newborns together, we're solid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I think it's just it's the hardest when it's absolutely going on right now in the moment. It gets challenging in different ways, but you also just feel like you're more equipped to handle the challenges that are coming with it.
For sure.
It's in the beginning, no one gives you a handbook on how to mother, and especially no one gives you a handbook on how to mother twins.
Yeah.
And so now you're figuring it out, but now if they're at a good age where they have a personality and
you feel good too about being they're good humans.
Yeah. They just love you because they love you.
Goofy, you're just oh, I did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm raising babies. It's kind of crazy to think. Every single time I see them now, because they're able to sit up and entertain, every single time I look at them and it's just me and them, and I'm like, I created you.
Yeah,
too.
it's amazing.
It's
they were both inside of you at one point. That is just the most incredible concept in the world.
They're way chunkier now, so it's kind of hard to put into perspective.
God, they were not so you right now at 20 pounds, but traumatizing.
They're chunkies.
Yeah, they are.
But so yeah.
Do you have interest in more babies?
Absolutely. We're going through something right now, which I'm sure we'll get to in another episode. I have a diagnosis called postpartum cardiomyopathy. So right now it's a little bit hard to think about next baby because we're still trying to make sure I recover fully from pregnancy and from postpartum, which I'm sure we'll touch on in a different episode or deep dive into that. But as soon as I'm back and ready and my husband is on board, we'll dive deep into baby number 3. Everyone always thinks that too. That's the number one question. Are you sure you want more? 2 is enough. And I'm I want to be able to experience baby with one baby.
Yeah.
I did the 2. I did the damn thing. Yeah. I did it. I'm excited. And I'm excited for my next experience. If it is twins, we know we can do it.
Yeah.
But if it is just one baby and we're lucky enough to have another baby, I want to be able to be a single.
Yeah, just enjoy a singleton pregnancy. You've never had the opportunity to do that before.
There's a lot of things that I missed out on. Not that I don't breastfeed, I pump, which is breastfeeding, but
and then she exclusively pumps, and she's done that for 9 months, which is absolutely absurd. If you're an exclusively pumping mom, not that exclusively breastfeeding is easy by any means, but I am just I give you guys all the credit in the world because I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about our breast milk feeding baby journey as well, which sounds super fun and interesting. But yeah, so I want to be able to just kind of feed one baby at a time.
Yeah, just enjoy a singleton baby. Exactly. You've never had that opportunity.
There's a lot of times where my focus was split 50-50. I'm over here with her, and then what is she doing over here? Is she okaying that bouncer?
And that's been your life forever. And it's precious. You never feel like you're able to give 100% to either one because you can't.
And then I know, of course, the next thing is, you're only going to be able to give 1/3 to that baby. Of course, your heart grows, and I understand that fully. A lot of people think that, oh, I love him so much, AJ, so much. How can I possibly love another so much? You just do it. Yeah. You love them for different reasons, different ways.
Yeah. And your heart just grows that much.
Exactly.
You're not replacing, neither one is replacing the other one. It's just your heart just grows. But it is easy to think that when you're bringing another one. So I can't imagine starting with 2, how that feels.
So like I said, once we get me down and ready and healthy again, then definitely baby number 3 on the horizon.
Last thing, if you have any, from all your 9 months now of knowledge into motherhood.
Yeah.
If you had any advice, your top 2 pieces of advice, let's say, for any new mom, either who is currently pregnant and about to go into motherhood, or a new mom struggling in the depths of postpartum, what 2 pieces of advice do you feel could have helped you when you were in those moments?
2 is hard to narrow down. Number 1 is definitely like you just do it. There's a lot of thoughts when you're pregnant, and if I can do it, will I be able to do it? I don't know what's coming. I don't know what's on the other side of this, and you just do it. There was a lot of people who came up to me like, "Are you ready for twins? Are you sure you can handle it? What about?" And then of course you just financially think about it. You think of the rest of your life. I'm never going to be able to just do it. The postpartum aspect of it, of having a C-section,
all the things that your mind can go to.
Of course, you just do it. You handle it. I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Women bodies are incredible, and women in general are incredible. They're resilient. So you just do it. You just do it. And even though it's not the norm now, it will become the norm. Now I can't imagine my life without my kids. You can't imagine.
It's so crazy to think about life any other way now. But when you're pregnant or before you get pregnant, it's hard to ever imagine. Like my life's gonna change so much. What is it gonna look like? How am I gonna function off of no sleep? And you just do it. Like I have never been more tired in my entire life than I probably am now.
And that's on 12 months sleep regression.
Yeah, and that's on all the sleep regressions he's ever had ever. But I've also never been as happy in my entire life. I wake up every single day and somehow I find energy through my chai.
No, like look how
I know. I chai. I've always sometimes you just find energy because it's the best thing in the entire world. You just do it. You survive hungry, tired,
you just do it.
Dirty.
That's definitely like everyone will come at you every single type of question. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you ready? Are you ready?
And you're never gonna be ready.
Yep. I was so ready, and then the amount of lists I sent out to my sisters or to people to pick stuff up for us. Once you're out of the hospital, you're like, oh shit, I had this there and I don't have it now. You just do it. Yeah. You just survive.
You just do it.
You do it. And then you realize, and like I said,
it takes a village. Yeah. And so you're not alone.
Yeah. And sometimes you are in that fog, right? Postpartum fog is real. And then you come out, you blink, they're 6 months old, and you're like, I made it. Yeah. I made it out of that stage. Yeah. And it's kind of hard to think about, like, you can get a little emotional thinking about it, how you, like, don't really remember yourself there, and then you just poof and you made it. Yeah.
True. I think about that a lot. I think about, like, being pregnant and even newly postpartum. It's like, it's almost like you like black out, you don't remember it. Like it's
You're like
I don't remember what it feels like to be like 38 weeks pregnant anymore. I don't remember what it feels like when I'm like freshly postpartum. Like I don't remember anymore. And like I could tell you the way I felt, the way I have lots of videos and pictures. Like that's the best thing about doing what I do. But also like it's definitely not. I don't remember. Yeah. Because you're just like it is a survival thing, but you will do it every single time.
Yeah. And same thing with. The second piece of advice is I would just say to trust your intuition. Mother's intuition is a real thing. Your women's intuition is a real thing when it comes to fertility. Yeah. I had it when it comes to motherhood. I kind of instinctively knew that I was pregnant with twins before they even told me that.
Me too.
You kind of just... everyone thought it was
Sister intuition.
And you just kind of know. So trust your gut. Your gut's a real thing. If something feels off, if something feels like you had about your doctor, things work out. Yeah. And you really just have to be like, I know what's best for my baby.
No one can love your baby or babies more than you can. Yeah. Like, I think that is such a good perspective. Like, in the beginning, that's something that really helped me a lot is like, nobody knows how to love your baby better in this moment than you do. Yeah. And so you are never going to make a decision with the wrong intention. You're doing as best as you can with the information you have.
For sure.
So you're just trusting your gut and what feels right in this moment. And you might look back 5 months from now and be like, that was the wrong decision. But in the moment, that was the right decision.
Exactly. So I think just trusting your gut and you just do it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, with that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode of the podcast here. If you guys like the podcast, please make sure you go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. It really supports it. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video that we put out. If you have any ideas of videos or topics you would like us to discuss or follow-up questions that you'd like to ask Anna, please let us know in the comments down below. And we will catch you guys here next time. See ya!